My daughter-in-law stood in my doorway with 2 giant suitcases and said, "Miss Dolores, Darius promised this house would be ours." Her words cracked through my living room like shattered glass. I was still in my robe, holding my morning coffee, watching her step inside as if she already owned the place. I took one slow sip, letting the silence stretch just long enough, and said calmly, too calmly, "Maybe. That's interesting, Tiana. Because I sold this house last week." She froze, mouth open, eyes wide, like someone had snatched the ground from under her feet. And right then, at 72 years old, something inside me finally snapped. Not from anger. Not from fear. From clarity. Because this moment didn't start with her suitcases. It started years ago, the first time I let myself be treated like a convenience instead of a person. Welcome to Life Voices, where family drama turns into late-life justice. If you're watching, tell us your city in the comments, we always read them. My name is Dolores Jackson, 72 years old, born and raised on the west side of Atlanta. Retired LPN. Widow. Church pianist when my fingers aren't acting up. And for most of my life, I was the kind of woman people describe with a soft sigh. She's such a sweetheart. Always there. Always helping. They never said she's tired. They never said she's lonely. They never said she's carrying everyone else's weight. No, they just kept coming. For decades, my life ran on 3 words. I got you, baby. Whenever somebody needed something, money, time, food, a place to sleep, someone to watch the kids, someone to drive them to urgent care, they called me. And I always showed up, often before they even finished asking. My son Darius grew up watching me do that. Some days I think he learned the wrong lesson from it. He's 38 now. Tall, handsome, smart, the kind of man who smiles with his whole face when he wants something. He used to be my sweet boy, the type who'd bring me daisies from the yard, who'd sit on the counter while I cooked and talk to me about spaceships and comic books. But somewhere along the way, being kind to people turned into being used by people. And instead of protecting me, Darius learned how to lean on me. Hard. Then came Tiana. Pretty as a picture, sharp tongue, and a confidence that could slice through steel. When he brought her home the first time, she hugged me long and deep, too warm, the kind of hug that feels like strategy, not affection. I felt it in my bones, but I kept my smile. You always hope your children choose well. At first, things were fine. She cooked with me on Sundays, helped fold laundry, even asked about my late husband. But once she and Darius married, the tone shifted. The warm voice turned demanding. The requests turned expectations. It started with little things. "Miss Dolores, can you watch the baby for a few hours?" "Miss Dolores, we're behind on the power bill, just this once." "Miss Dolores, can you help us with rent until Darius gets his bonus?" "Just this once. Just until. Just because you love us." And I did love them. So I reached for my purse. And my keys. And my free time. Over and over and over again. I kept telling myself it was what family does. I told myself I was lucky to still be needed. I told myself they were young and stressed and trying their best. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was their safety net. Their backup plan. Their automatic yes. When Darius asked for help buying a second car so he wouldn't embarrass himself at work, I withdrew from my savings account. When Tiana said she needed money for a work conference, that turned out to be a weekend in Miami with her girlfriends, I paid the bill after she sprained her ankle dancing on a rooftop bar. When their lights got cut off for the 3rd time, I drove straight over and paid the balance myself. I thought they saw my sacrifices. I thought they appreciated them. But appreciation and dependence aren't the same thing. The breaking point came quiet and slow, like water rising under the door. It was my birthday, last June. 72 years on this earth. I baked my own lemon cake, set 2 extra plates at the table, and waited for them to come by, after work. Nobody showed up. Nobody called. Nobody remembered. At 9:14 p.m., I got a text. From Tiana. "Sorry, Miss Dolores, we're swamped." Rain check? A rain check for your mother-in-law's birthday. A rain check for the woman keeping your bills paid and your life together. That night, sitting at my empty table with a cake I couldn't bring myself to cut, I realized something. I had trained the people I loved to walk over me. Not out of malice, out of habit. Because I never said no. Because I acted like my needs were optional and theirs were urgent. After that night, I began paying attention. The tone of their voices. The way they spoke to me only when they needed something. The way I disappeared whenever my kindness wasn't useful. And yet, I still didn't change anything. Not right away. It's hard to unlearn a lifetime of giving. The final push came from someone unexpected, my neighbor, Gloria. She's 80, louder than a marching band, always arriving with casseroles whether you asked or not. She sees everything, and she saw me shrinking. One afternoon, she caught me sitting on my porch steps staring at a pile of unpaid bills, not mine, theirs. Baby, she said, sitting beside me without asking, kindness without boundaries becomes a prison. I laughed it off, but she didn't. She placed her hand over mine and said, "You raised your son, Dolores. You don't owe him your life." Her words settled into me like seeds waiting for rain. And then, 2 weeks later, Tiana showed up with 2 giant suitcases and a smile too smug for daylight. That was the rain. That was the moment the seeds finally cracked open. That was the moment the quiet woman everyone depended on decided she wasn't going to be quiet anymore. When Tiana stood in my doorway with those suitcases, I knew I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding. I was dealing with entitlement that had grown fat off my silence. She dragged the bags across my hardwood floors like she was rolling into a hotel suite she'd already paid for. "Darius told me once you're gone, this house was meant for us," she said, tossing her hair like the words weren't blades. Once I'm gone. Not even if, once. Like my death was a date already circled on their calendar. I folded my arms. "Tiana, who told you that?" She didn't hesitate. "Your son. He said you wouldn't mind letting us move in early." Move in early. Into the house I'd worked 37 years to pay off. Into the rooms I'd painted myself, the ones still smelling like lavender cleaner because I'd wiped down every cabinet that morning. I stayed calm. "And why would you need to move in today?" She huffed. "Our landlord raised the rent again. And honestly, we're tired of struggling while you live in this big place alone. It's not fair." There it was. Not fair. The anthem of people who think your life belongs to them because you've made too many sacrifices. "Where's Darius?" I asked. "He's at work," she snapped. "He said you wouldn't make this difficult." I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept my paperwork. I pulled out a thick folder, thumped it onto the table, and opened it so she could see every line. Her eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "Receipts," I said, "since fairness is on your mind." On the top page was the power bill I'd paid for them last winter, $3,800, accumulated over 3 months while they sat in a house with holiday lights on day and night. Next was the invoice for Darius's brakes and transmission, $9,400, a repair he promised to repay as soon as taxes come in. Then the bill from Tiana's so-called business trip, $6,000, the visit that happened after she twisted her ankle dancing barefoot on a VIP bar table. And finally, the personal loan I'd given Darius when he claimed he just needed a boost to get back on track, $10,000, untouched, unpaid, conveniently forgotten. "That's family helping family," she said defensively, her voice trembling at the edges. "No," I corrected gently. "That's me being used." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I pushed the folder closer. "I'm 72. I worked double shifts for decades. I saved every penny so I wouldn't be a burden. And you two walk in here with luggage like you bought the deed yourselves." She crossed her arms. "Well, you can't just sell the house without telling us." I almost laughed. "Tell you? Why would I need your permission?" "Because," she snapped, "we were counting on it." There it was. The truth spilling out raw and ugly. Not counting on me. Not counting on love. Counting on the house. The free ride. The safety net. The inheritance they thought they could spend while I was still breathing. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Darius walked in, loosened his tie, and froze the moment he saw us. "Mom," he said, avoiding my eyes. "I told Tiana she could get settled while we talked." "Talked about what?" I asked. "About us moving in," he said softly. "It makes sense. You're getting older, you shouldn't be alone, and we need more space." I cut him off. "I sold the house." His face drained. "You, what?" "I sold it last week," I repeated. "The papers are signed. The closing date is set." Tiana exploded. "You can't do that. We planned our whole future around this place." That's the problem, I said. My life is not your future. My home is not your stepping stone. Darius rubbed his forehead. Mom, why would you do something this major without telling us? Because it's my decision, I said. Because you haven't asked me how I'm doing in years. Because I'm tired, baby. And tired people make changes. For a moment, no one spoke. The air between us felt thick, heavy, humming with resentment. Then Tiana whispered, "What are we supposed to do now?" The old me would have folded. Would have hugged her and offered my guest room and handed over my savings. But that woman was gone. You two, I said calmly, are adults. You will figure it out. Their faces shifted, anger on hers, disbelief on his. But I wasn't done. I slid the folder back toward me and closed it with a soft thud. This stops today, I said. No more surprise bills. No more guilt trips. No more using my love as a bank. Darius took a step toward me, voice breaking. Mom, we're family. Yes, I said quietly. And family doesn't drain the oldest person dry. I walked to the doorway and held it open. Not out of cruelty, out of finally learning the difference between love and self-sacrifice. Take your bags, I said. Go home. Work it out. They hesitated, but they left. And when the door closed behind them, I felt the strangest thing settle over me. Not fear, not regret, relief. For the first time in my life, I had defended my own worth. When Darius and Tiana left that day, I thought the storm had passed. But storms don't end, they circle back. 2 days later, they came knocking again. No suitcases this time, but the look on their faces told me they hadn't come to apologize. Mom, we need to talk, Darius said, stepping inside before I even invited him. Tiana followed, arms crossed tight over her chest, lips pressed in a thin, sour line. I stayed standing. It felt like the only solid ground I had left. Darius sighed dramatically. You selling the house without consulting us, it makes me think you're overwhelmed. Maybe confused. Confused. The word slapped me harder than any insult could. Tiana chimed in, too quickly. We're not judging you, Miss Dolores. It's just, you've made some rash decisions lately. Rash. My heart thudded once, heavy. When exactly have I been confused? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Tiana shrugged like she pitied me. Well, last week you forgot to pick up Malik from daycare. That made me laugh. I haven't picked up Malik from daycare in 2 years. You never asked me. Her jaw clenched. She hadn't expected me to remember that. And, Darius added, you overreacted when we didn't come for your birthday. Overreacted. That was their version of forgetting I existed. I felt heat rise in my chest. Not anger, something clearer. A line drawing itself where there hadn't been one before. So let me get this straight, I said. You forget my birthday, you treat my home like a free upgrade, and now you want to diagnose me? Mom, we're trying to help you, Darius insisted, softening his voice like he was talking to a child. You can't handle everything alone anymore. There it was. Gaslighting in its purest form. Turn the victim into the problem. Rewrite the story until the oldest person becomes the weakest link. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Only one person enters my house without knocking. Gloria. Dolores, baby, I brought you that peach cobbler. She froze when she saw them. Then her eyes narrowed like she'd walked in on a crime scene. Well, she said, setting the casserole on the counter. Didn't know today was take advantage of your elder day. Tiana rolled her eyes. Hi, Miss Gloria. Oh, don't, Miss Gloria, me, she snapped. I'm old, not blind. And I can smell manipulation quicker than I smell burnt cornbread. Darius groaned. This is a private family matter. No it ain't, Gloria said, planting herself at my side like a guard dog. Not when you're trying to convince this woman she's losing her mind. I felt myself breathe for the first time in minutes. Gloria pulled her phone from her purse. You want to talk about your mama being confused? Let's talk about your mama working her bones for you too. She opened her photo gallery. A slideshow began, picture after picture. Me, cooking Thanksgiving dinner while Tiana lounged on the sofa scrolling her phone. Me, babysitting Malik while Darius played basketball with friends. Me, handing Darius cash outside his job. Me, pushing a shopping cart full of groceries I bought for their pantry. Evidence. Weeks and months of evidence. Tiana looked stunned. Why do you have pictures? Gloria frowned. Because I knew this day was coming. I could see how you two talked to her. I could see the way she shrank every time you made her feel small. So I collected receipts. Darius rubbed his temples. This is ridiculous. Oh no, Gloria said, voice low and sharp. What's ridiculous is the fact that neither of you remembered this woman's birthday. But I did. She pointed to the framed photo on my mantle, me and her blowing out candles together. A simple day, but one filled with genuine love. The kind of love my own son didn't show me. The silence stretched until Tiana muttered, "This is getting blown out of proportion." Gloria barked a short laugh. Honey, the only thing blown out of proportion is your sense of entitlement. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. Why didn't you two show up that day? Darius looked away. Tiana refused to answer. And suddenly, the truth hovered in the air like smoke. They didn't remember because they didn't think they needed to. To them, I was support. A resource. A backup plan. Not a mother. Not a person. Something inside me snapped, not angrily, but permanently. You know what hurts the most? I whispered. Not the money. Not the bills. Not even the house. It's realizing the people I poured my life into can't even see me. Darius finally looked up, guilt flickering across his face. Mom, we didn't mean. Yes, baby, I said softly. You did. Gloria stepped forward and put a hand on my shoulder. You don't owe anyone an apology today. Not a soul. Tiana's voice rose sharply. So what now? You just cut us off? Pretend we don't exist? No, I said calmly. But I'm done pretending I don't. My hands were steady. My voice was steady. My heart, for the first time, felt steady. Please leave, I said. Both of you. They hesitated. They waited for the old Dolores to crumble. But she wasn't there anymore. When you're ready to treat me like family, I added, you can come back. It took them a full minute to realize I meant it. When the door finally shut behind them, Gloria hugged me tight. I didn't cry. Not a single tear. What I felt was something else. The rising calm that comes before a life finally turns a corner. After they left that second time, the house felt different. Not empty, quiet in a clean way, like the air had finally stopped apologizing for other people. I brewed myself a cup of tea and sat at the table where I'd spent years filling out their forms, their bank slips, their late notices. But this time, I placed something else there instead. A manila envelope labeled, My New Life. Inside were the documents I'd signed the week before. The ones they thought I was too confused to understand. The sale agreement for my house. All $280,000 of it waiting to be used for something that didn't drain me, guilt me, or demand to be saved. I took a slow sip of tea and whispered to myself, it's time. The next morning, I packed 2 boxes, just 2. Clothes, my Bible, my watercolor brushes, the photo of my husband smiling in his Sunday suit. Everything else? I donated it. Let the old energy stay with the old walls. By noon, I had keys to a place I never knew existed, a senior co-op apartment overlooking Glenwood Park. The moment I walked in, sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors like God himself had pulled back the curtains. Small kitchen, soft yellow walls, a window that caught the breeze just right. It didn't feel like a downgrade. It felt like a beginning. I signed up for everything they offered. Watercolor classes on Tuesdays, gentle dance lessons on Thursdays, a women's writing circle on Saturdays, 6 widows and 1 divorcee who swore she'd never let a man ruin her peace again. And for the first time in decades, my schedule wasn't built around anyone else's crisis. But I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I walked into the community college on Memorial Drive and filled out a single form. A scholarship form. Under name of scholarship, I wrote, the LPN Legacy Scholarship minus $60,000. Eligibility. Young black women entering nursing. Because that was me once, tired, overlooked, working 3 jobs just to make it through school. When they asked if I wanted the scholarship to be anonymous, I said, no. Put my name on it. I earned it. The next stop was the bank, where I set up a $40,000 trust for my grandchildren. Not for Darius. Not for Tiana. For the babies. Only the babies. I made sure the paperwork was ironclad. No parent access, I told the banker. Not under any circumstance. He nodded. You'd be surprised how many grandparents request that. I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. By the time the sun began to set, My new life was more real than any guilt they had ever pinned on me. I sat on my tiny balcony, feet propped up, watching a group of teenagers play basketball in the park below. For the first time in 40 years, I asked myself, "What do you want, Dolores?" And the answers came easily. I wanted joy that wasn't borrowed. I wanted peace that didn't require permission. I wanted days where the only person I needed to take care of was me. And I had it. I thought that would be the end of the story. A clean, bittersweet ending. But life has a way of surprising you when you finally step into your worth. 3 months passed. Then one Sunday morning, during my watercolor class, I heard someone call my name from the doorway. "Mom?" Darius stood there holding a bag of takeout barbecue ribs, the good kind, not the cheap kind, and a bouquet of white daisies. Behind him, Tiana held Malik on her hip. No bags, no entitlement, just tired eyes and something I hadn't seen on her face before. Humility. I didn't rush to them. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I placed my brush down gently and walked over. "We came to spend the day with you," Darius said softly. No favors, no questions, just lunch, and an apology. Tiana swallowed. A real one. For a moment, all the years of pain hovered between us like dust in a sunbeam. Then I nodded. "All right," I said. "Come inside." They joined me on the balcony, Malik giggling as he played with my bracelets. We talked about nothing and everything, his work, her new job, the kids, the weather. Not once did they ask for money. Not once did they hint at needing help. They came for time, the one thing I always wanted from them and the only thing they never tried to take advantage of. And as the sun dipped behind the trees, I realized something. I hadn't just changed my life. I'd changed theirs, not with lectures, not with punishments, with a boundary, the one they never thought I'd set. The one that finally taught them how to value me. By choosing myself, I'd finally taught them how to choose me too. This story was never about a house. It was about a woman who finally stopped shrinking herself to fit inside other people's expectations. I learned that love without respect is just labor. That giving without boundaries becomes a cage. And that it's never too late, not at 72, not at any age, to choose yourself first. The day I said, enough, my life didn't fall apart. It finally began. And if you're standing at that same crossroads, wondering whether you're allowed to put yourself first, hear me clearly. Yes. You are. Your next chapter can start the moment you decide it should. Would you have sold the house? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more real stories like this, like, subscribe, and stay with me. Subscribe for more emotional family stories. Speech balloon share in the comments. Have you ever lived through something similar? Red heart, your story matters here.